What is happening, everybody? We just can't just sit around and watch all this stuff happen, and we got to get talking. It's been too long. It's been a while. We'll get back to you guys, and we'll talk about all this free agent craziness here in about 30 seconds. All righty, what is up? What is up? Very excited to be here. It's been too damn long. It feels like it's just been forever since I've been waiting for this for so long. But with me, I got my man Joe. Joe, what do you know? How are we doing today?
Guess who's back, baby? It's been the Super Bowl was a phenomenal game, and it's been 6 weeks of reliving that, and now we've had a phenomenal week of free agency, and yeah, man, 6 weeks off. I've been chomping at the bit to see you in front of me and talk some shop here.
Yeah, it's been really nice. The time off has been nice. I took that time to get fully moved into a house over here in Nebraska. We're all settled in finally. This house actually has my own podcast room. It's going to be a lot better set up here as we get progressing here. It's just a work in progress, and unfortunately, you got to worry about things like your kitchen and your living room before you really get too tied into your podcast room. If you want to have a happy life, anyways. So this has been probably one of the craziest free agencies I've ever seen. I mean, I've been around for quite a few of them, as you can tell by the gray on the front of the beard here. I've seen my fair share of these free agencies, but man, what's going on? It's like, did fantasy managers take over the NFL? That's the only thing I can think of. What have you been seeing there, Joe? What do you think about all this?
I'm loving the evolution of free agency and even like trades in the NFL. Like 10 years ago, you would be shocked if you pulled off one, maybe two trades a year, whether it was at the deadline or during the off season. Now it's loosened up a ton. You got Keenan Allen all of a sudden getting traded. We're out of nowhere. So you've seen deadline moves where the NFL's starting to become at least a little bit closer to the NBA and Major League Baseball as far as the excitement leading up to the trade deadline. And now this free agent, Monday afternoon to Wednesday, this 48 hours of NFL free agency is just another example of the monopoly that the NFL has on the United States of America sports fan attention span.
Exactly. Yep. They get to live in our ass rent free all year long. And I'm here for it. I love it. I'm very excited to see it. It's kind of funny when you look at like teams like the Chargers are like, yep, we got Harbaugh now, and they're like, but side note, you're not going to have one player on this team that was here last year. Hope you like Everett, maybe, but it's going to be a whole different scenario over there. He has Herbert, but that's going to be about it. It looks like so. We'll get to talking on some of these moves right here. And we're just going to kind of brush over. We're not going to be talking about some of these moves that, where, gosh dang it, I was going to say somebody here. I can't remember who irrelevant was, but he signed a 1-year deal with the Patriots, and now I can't even remember his name because he's so
you're saying that the Giants taking tight end Jordan Stoll from Philadelphia isn't going to be the headline of the season?
Right, yeah, that's probably not going to be what we're going to be focusing on. Low Patriots signing Austin Hooper to a 1-year deal. That's what it was. Like, we're not going to probably be focusing too much on that. We're just going to go ahead and just keep on going with the real news. Pollard to the Titans. Titans look like they're bolstering some stuff up. This looked like a good move. Pollard being on that team, it seemed to me like I was like, oh man, that's going to be exciting with Derrick Henry. That's going to be a pretty nasty 1-2 punch. But then we'll talk about that here in just a second. What do you think about this Pollard move?
It's interesting with Pollard. I think we kind of figured this was it for Derrick Henry. And I feel like we just kind of segue right into Derrick Henry to Baltimore after this Pollard one, because that's a whole nother conversation. Pollard's interesting because he's going to have all the chances in the world to shine. They got Will Levis. I assume he'll be the quarterback going into the season. So they got a young quarterback where they're going to want to build their defense and their running game to help him out. But they got a new coach. They got a whole new regime there, really. I don't think they should have let Vrabel walk, to be completely honest. But, that's a whole other thing also. Then my only other thought is Pollard was supposed to run for 1,500 yards for the Cowboys this year behind a great offensive line and a great offense, well-balanced offense, and it just didn't happen. So we're going to find out this year, was that because of Tony Pollard, or was that because of the way the Cowboys were or were not using him? I really do believe that Tennessee is going to try to be very dedicated to him from a touch perspective.
Yep, I agree. I think he's going to be a good addition to that team, and I think that team's kind of they made some good moves.
Last question, and I almost want to end everyone on this. So Pollard, right now, you would feel comfortable from a fantasy perspective is him as your number 2?
Man, I think my number 3. I think I'm drafting 2 people ahead of him, feeling confident. I'm okay drafting him as my number 2, but I better have a solid wide receiver core to balance that out, because that could go south pretty quick. This team has been fairly lackluster the past 2 years, and it's been declining, not ascending. So we'll have to see what that team does.
I agree. Last question. One more that just popped in my head, Mikey, and this is more for you because you know about these younger guys more than I do. What does this do from your perspective for Spears? Because Spears came on as the backup, right, for Henry third down situations. What do you think his role will be now?
I think that we're going to see, like I said, that's why Pollard is would be nervous wracking for me as my number 2, is because Tyjae Spears looks so good in this last year. So I think we're going to see a mix of those two. I think we're going to see a little bit of plus or minus on Pollard. And I think you're going to I think you're going to see a lot more situationally based football from the Titans from the backfield perspective. So that's why, like I said, I wouldn't feel confident with this guy as my 2. We got Swift to the Bears. Swift to the Bears. I think he had a really, really good season. I think the Bears are going to be able to use him. I really kind of was worried about him with Justin Fields, but that doesn't look like that's no longer going to be an issue. It's going to be more of a Caleb Williams thing, possibly. What do you think?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a head scratcher with Swift from the perspective he was great for them in the first half of the season last year in Philly, and then he kind of had a wishy-washy second half, but the whole team did. Obviously, they imploded by the end of the year. The Bears are becoming like literally the most interesting team going into the season with the draft position, obviously, that they're about to pull the trigger on, the Keenan Allen deal, this DeAndre Swift deal. They are making themselves relevant, and there's going to be a quarterback throwing to DJ Moore on one side, Keenan Allen on the other side, Cole Kmet up the middle, and Swift out of the backfield, and that's no joke.
Yeah. Nope, that's going to be crazy. So that's going to be a team to watch this year as well. I mean, they're going to be pretty well stacked on that offense right there, and that's exactly what it is. Saquon is gone, and he is now flying. Eagles fly. So, man, I think Saquon in Philadelphia, that's going to be a huge addition. I think that team's going to be one step closer. They were definitely one step behind last year, but I think that's going to be one that we're going to have to watch, and I'm going to be happy grabbing him in most drafts. Cousins heading south for the winner. Well, the next 4 winners, he's heading south. He's an Atlanta Falcon now. What do you think about this move here? What does this do for you finally? I'm so mad at myself right now because you know what I'm going to say? I'm excited about Kyle Pitts. I'm very excited about Kyle Pitts right now. And I've been too excited about Kyle Pitts too many times. Man, the guy's young. He's been looking better every single season. And now he has Kirk Cousins, who loves his tight end. What do you think about Cousins heading to Atlanta?
First thing I think about it is I want Kirk Cousins to teach a course on making money and business decisions, and I want to take that course.
Yes.
Because he's about at my talent level, yet he has turned his salary quite a bit ahead of mine. Amazing the way he has run into these contract years. It's crazy. It's funny, like I've heard so much about London this week, and there's been hot takes on ESPN saying London's going to be the next Justin Jefferson now. And then obviously the Pitts thing, it's a team that's pretty balanced other than the QB. And now they have the QB. Does that translate into playoff wins? Historically, it hasn't for Cousins, but they're in a division that is, it's not horrible, but it ain't great.
Well, they'll definitely. You got Bijan in the backfield as well. Drake London. Dude, that team is nasty. They just went from 0 to nasty in about 5 seconds, right there. Yeah. In my opinion, I think this team's going to be very high octane. I think they're going to actually be fun to watch this year.
And
So
the defense
that
is
was a big
underrated
one
too.
for me. Like I think this might have been my favorite signing of this offseason so far, which is crazy because there's been like 17,000 of them that are awesome. Like I said, it's like fantasy owners took over the NFL. The Packers signed Jacobs. Is that a big deal? I mean, is that going to be, to me, it's almost the same guy as Aaron Jones. What are you saying here?
That's what I'm saying. Like, they're big names. Jacobs is a big name. That's a big signing in general. Aaron Jones, same thing. But from a Packers perspective, okay, let's say you upgraded a half a click. What is that? I don't know. For the $7.5 million that Jones got versus what was it, 11 for Jacobs? You know, I don't love the move. I don't see Aaron Jones was so big in their locker room too. I think they probably have some questions about his long-term health. But Jacobs wasn't overly durable this year either. So this one was a little surprising to me. I don't love this one. I don't think it's a needle mover.
Yep, nope. Like I said, I think to me it's almost the same exact guy. I think it's going to be a lateral move. But now for the other guy, Aaron packs up and heads somehow more north to Minnesota from Green Bay. So I mean that's really hard to do. Head north from there. Do you think he's going to be an impact player there? I mean, for me, this team just has a ton of question marks around it. I really don't know what I like about Minnesota now. I mean, you've got great weapons, absolutely, but now who are you going to have throwing them the football? That's the part right there that I cannot believe they let Kirk Cousins go because that's a team that could have used him as well. It really kind of shocked me on that one. What do you think about this one, Aaron Jones in Minnesota?
Yeah, I want to like it, but it's all about the quarterback. I want to like the Jefferson-Addison tandem at wide receiver. That's a phenomenal tandem. Addison showed great flashes last year as a rookie, but we have no idea is it going to be Hall? We don't have an idea who their quarterback's going to be right now, right?
Right. And I mean, best case scenario, if you're looking at a rookie, now this rookie's going to have to produce. So, I mean, it makes it really scary for a lot of those guys for me.
So real quick question, not to move this over, but Jimmy Garoppolo just signs with the Rams, backup obviously. Justin Fields to the Steelers, backup obviously. Kenny Pickett to Philadelphia, right? Backup obviously. How doesn't Minnesota get into play for any of those guys?
That's right. Yeah, Justin Fields, obviously. I don't think that one's so obviously. I think that might have. I think that he can easily beat Russell Wilson in a one-on-one competition in that type of an offense and take the lead.
No, I do too. But what I'm saying is, how doesn't Minnesota end up you didn't even hear a story that they were going for any of them? That's what I don't understand.
I think I'd rather have Justin Fields in a situation like that for sure. As opposed to letting that guy go to at least at a prospective chance at a backup status. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, to me, that's a couple very Sam Howell's another guy who I feel like is very serviceable and should be on a team. Austin Eckler is a commie. You heard it here first. I said it here first. He's a commie. He's a no, I'm just kidding. He's a commander, man, and that's going to be pretty crazy. I think, watching that backfield do what it did last year, I think that I really like Eckler in this situation. I think he's going to be in a better situation than he was in with the Chargers. What do you think right here on this one?
It's another team where I'm not sure overall what to think about them, but so this is Eckler, Antonio Gibson, and Brian Robinson Jr. in the backfield at this point. They haven't lost any of those guys.
Gibson's gone. Gibson's gone. Gibson's gone.
So that's a hell of a tandem, Robinson and Eckler. I'm not sure how that looks because they're both workhorses when they're on the field.
Right. Fact. No, it's going to be crazy to see. And like I said, that's another offense that I'm just really not too excited about. Austin Eckler had a really down season this year. So, I mean, you expect him to go up from there. But that's because it's not very hard to go up from where he was. It's going to be tough to see him on that team, I think, though.
That's another team, too, where it's good. I mean, decent weapons overall, right? We just talked about two decent running backs. They got Dotson. They got McLaurin. We have no idea who their quarterback's going to be as of now either, correct?
Yeah. Yep. Nope. That's another team that's got a lot of question marks around the whole situation, like I said. So, I mean, when you have question marks like that, I'm pretty much fading a lot of that offense right there. Mooney gets paid. How did that happen? Now, what was I not watching, or what were you watching something different last year? This is kind of a crazy one to me.
I don't like. I feel like he's being paid $1 million per target based on his production last year. Never mind an actual catch. The way I mentioned earlier that I want to take the Kirk Cousins business class. I want Mooney's agent. It must be Scott Boras. I swear.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know how he gets that money. That's Atlanta too, right? Another weapon.
Yep, another weapon for Kirk Cousins.
I get the potential, but it just hasn't played out yet for him.
Yeah, no, and I mean, to me, he just got into a situation where there's already plenty of mouths to feed, and now you got to pay this guy for 3 years, $39 million. I mean, that's going to be a huge hit, but that was just one that I had to make sure we got on here because it was such a massive deal.
We had the same reaction. No words.
That's it. That's it. Derrick Henry is a Titan. Nevermore. He's gone to Baltimore, man. What do you think? Now, this one excites me. I really like this one, although I don't like touchdown production from anybody on that offense because they're not Lamar Jackson. But Derrick Henry, I think, is going to be a workhorse for this team. I think he's going to be able to put up another 1,000-yard season. What do you think on Derrick Henry as a Raven?
I think, that team is just so well-rounded. And if you get Dobbins back, I don't know. You got Dobbins, you got Keaton Mitchell, potentially. They're both be coming off ACLs. But let's just say one of the two of those guys are viable, and you have a phenomenal 1-2-3 punch at running back because, to your point, you're getting 1,000 yards rushing from Lamar Jackson, too. In the end, it's all just going to be about, are they healthy and playing well come next January?
Yep, and I think this is one of those moves that should take them over that little hump that maybe I think you could probably maybe not after we talk about a little bit here in a minute because they added some weapons, but to be actually Kansas City, so I think that's going to be a good move for them down the road. Deontay Johnson to the Panthers. Is that a move that excites you for Bryce, or what are you thinking here?
It could. Deontay Johnson moving in general excites me because I really, he is I like him from a fantasy perspective. I always have high targets. Even at the end of the year, he's getting in the end zone a little bit. The fact that it's to the Panthers kind of burst this bubble for me a little bit. I will say, if it's Johnson and Thielen, because I don't think they've lost Thielen, have they?
No, not that I'm aware of.
That is a nice one too. So Bryce will have some weapons. I'm having a brain fart on who else they added because I know there was a couple other guys. But it's hard. I would have loved to have seen Johnson go to a better team as like their number 2 because I think that would be really interesting. I root for Bryce Young. I don't know. What do you think?
So on this one, I feel like I really like Deontay Johnson on this fit in with this offense. I think Bryce Young basically is going to be one of those quarterbacks that we got to see him have a little bit of chance and get, some sort of a feel for it anyways. And I feel like Deontay Johnson is going to be a really good guy to be able to throw that ball to. I mean, he's a guy that has huge range of motion on him. I mean, I believe it's anything within 12 yards he catches with like a 70 or 80% consistency rate. Like, I mean, he's amazing as far as the numbers go. So I feel like giving that to a good young quarterback, it gives you a little bit more room for error, things like that, where you're going to make those little bit higher throws, where you're going to make them inner or outer. So I think Deontay Johnson is going to be a great fit for Bryce Young. As a matter of fact, I see him taking an uptick. I'm really more excited about him long-term third year, especially with this deal with Deontay Johnson. But so I'm still going to be a little bit more confident, at least drafting Bryce Young. I think Deontay Johnson's still going to have the draft value that he has because he's such a target monster, and this is going to be no different on that offense.
He's always been underrated, in my opinion, fantasy-wise.
Underrated, I agree. Yep, nope. It's because he doesn't get touchdowns, man. Yeah. If he could get more touchdowns, he would be there would almost be zero wide receivers near the guy. Calvin Ridley broke the bank in Tennessee, $92 million for 4 years. Oy.
This one's got Albert Haynesworth written all over it, in my opinion.
That's awesome. I love it. Yep, nope, I agree. That's going to be one where I don't think you get your return on investment, although I do like Treylon Burks and Calvin Ridley. I think that's going to be a nasty 1-2 punch. I think with the other additions on that team, they could do something, and they look good with the quarterback last year. So, I mean, Calvin Ridley, he's a good addition, but he's like where the other guys we're talking about, they're actual difference makers on teams. I don't think he's one of those guys. I think he's more of a distraction than he is.
Agreed.
But he's a great receiver when he decides he wants to show up that week.
Yes, he's so inconsistent. I will give Tennessee a little bit of props. You get Pollard, you go out and get Ridley. At least they're putting some weapons in front of this kid to give him a chance. I'll give him props for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like I said, Treylon Burks is an amazing receiver. And I feel like now that he's starting to get his legs underneath him, he looked even better at the end of last year. I think he's going to be a guy to really watch. I think he's going to be a steal in drafts. I think you're going to be probably a 16th rounder if he even gets drafted at all. So we'll keep an eye on that stock for a while.
My last thing on Ridley, though, like Saquon Barkley, and it could be other running backs too. We all know that a bunch of them got lowballed. But like a guy like Saquon Barkley has got to want to punch a baby when he sees the Calvin Ridley news come down at the bottom of that ticker. How the fuck is Calvin Ridley worth almost double what I'm worth if I'm Saquon Barkley? Because he is not. That would drive me nuts. So
that is tough, but I mean, you can't argue with the fact that the running backs do deserve a little bit of a tapered market, just for what we've seen and what it's proven to be. You know, I mean, it's looking like it's paying off to not pay your running backs in most of these instances, because they just don't have longevity. As these linebackers are getting bigger and bigger every single year, man. The more and more hits these guys are taking, to get a running back run through the mill for 3 years, he's doing pretty damn amazing. So, you know, that's what I think happens for running backs. Joe Mixon says, howdy to the Texans. I like this move a lot. This team was competitive last year. They looked really good. I feel like they were just a running back short. Not to say anything bad about Singletary, because he looked amazing last year, but I just don't think he has the bulk Mixon has. What do you got on this one?
Yeah, I'll tell you, this one shocked me. On both ends. I'm surprised, and it was going to be a sign. They turned it into a trade the last second, but I don't know. I'm just a little surprised to see Mixon walk from Cincinnati, and they haven't really replaced him yet either, correct?
No, correct. Yeah, no, that team. Well, I mean, Zach Evans was looking really good at the last of the year,
and that kid Brown too. Didn't they have some other rookie or younger kid? Maybe I'm wrong about that. They had some burner.
Yes, I think that was Evans.
It was Evans, yeah. So he was stealing some of the thunder towards the end of the year. You know, Houston, it's an upgrade over Singletary. So to your point, an already very good team. They beefed up their defense big time with the Danielle Hunter. They just called the 300-pound, $180 million defensive end Danielle. You know, and now they upgraded running back for CJ.
That was my nickname in high school, by the way.
There you go. So yeah, you can't argue with what Houston's doing. They look really freaking good going into the season, no doubt about it.
Yeah, no doubt. Especially Stroud can stay on that pace. He looked really good last year. I think they got that team set up for success. So we'll probably see him fail. Curtis Samuel signs a 3-year deal with Buffalo. That's not very significant, but I feel like that's me and you talked about this before the show, and that is one of those like kind of sleeper moves. Like he's on a team with Josh Allen now, and you don't have Gabe Davis taking those targets. And I feel like this is a guy that A, gets more targets, demands more attention than Gabe Davis, and B, pulls off a little bit Gabe Davis type games every now and again. So I feel like he's going to be a great grab late. What do you like about this trade right here?
I do like this one. And you got to remember the tight ends, right? So you got Diggs, you got Kincaid, you got Dawson Knox, who is still relevant, even with Kincaid good. And now you throw Curtis Samuel. And my thing about Samuel versus Davis is, to me, Samuel's just so much more savvy. And he's just more of a professional. And I don't mean that personality-wise, but Samuel is great in the red zone. He's got good hands. You can give him the ball out of the backfield as a rush. He's great getting in the end zone, you know, short yardage, all of these kind of nuances where I feel like that's where Gabe Davis kind of fell short. Obviously, Davis can drop a ball or two. I think Samuel's a little more short-handed. And I just think that there are going to be some really interesting and creative ways for Allen and Samuel to hook up in the red zone. So I am somewhat excited for that.
Same. Yep. I was, there's been a few different signings that have happened over the past that remind me of this, and they haven't panned out, but I do think this one will. Chargers send Keenan Allen to Chicago. They sent Mike Williams packing. The Keenan Allen, so Chicago was looking really set up for Fields. I feel like, man, he was he would have loved this kind of an offense with DJ Moore and Keenan Allen as your 1-2 punch. But I guess they're getting a rookie set up. This rookie has no reason to fail. What do you think about this move right here? Where's Mike Williams going to go?
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack with both of these teams. And you got like the Harbaugh factor for the Chargers too. So you're bringing in this big dick energy coach, but then you get rid of Eckler, Keenan Allen, and Mike Williams. So I don't know if maybe they really like a couple of their younger wideouts that played last year, or they're just going to hand Harbaugh the keys from a draft perspective and let him build this thing up. They have the most important piece with Herbert. So that's where you start, and you feel good about that. Chicago, I'm feeling it. The other thing about the Chargers, they're in a division that they're not going to win regardless next year anyways. Chicago, like that whole division, especially if Minnesota were to get a quarterback, that's going to be a super fun division to watch. And the Bears are going to be, as infatuated as we were with the Lions all year last year, I feel like, especially if they were to win their first game or two, that could be the Bears for the NFL this year. They're going to, DJ Moore and Keenan Allen with Kmet and DeAndre Swift. Come on.
Yeah, you can put me at quarterback there, and you probably still pull down 6 games or something like that, man. No, I'm saying like the Chicago Bears should be exciting this year. Imagine that, having to cover Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. Both of these guys have respective, career years every single year. These guys are just consistent, amazing, and both of them are target monsters. So, this, like I said, this is going to be crazy to watch next year.
Let me ask you a question, because you're better with college than I am. Obviously they let Justin Fields go with the trade. You assume they're drafting Williams. How do you feel about that? Like, which quarterback makes you more excited for their season?
Caleb Williams is exciting. He has a lot of flash in college and a lot of things that he did, but man, there's a lot of things. I just don't like rookies. I don't like rookies in the NFL. They very, very rarely translate to anything that can hit the floor running. And I know all these guys just come up and they're more and more talented every single year. And so you do see it every now and again. But like CJ Stroud, look at CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. Bryce Young was a clear cut 101. Let's grab this guy right away. CJ Stroud is screw that guy. He's a 2, and if you look at those two, but we're looking at this as a sprint, not a marathon. Like Bryce Young could still easily have a way better career than CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud just started out hotter. So that's the thing about rookies, is we just never know what kind of situation they're going to get, what kind of team. Nico Collins was on very few radars last year. Tank Dell was on very few radars last year. Nathaniel Dell at the draft time, things like that. It's tough to say. So, I just don't like rookie situations. That's the thing with me. I just don't like having rookies in there. I would much rather have gone with this lineup, with this team, because they didn't get rid of Justin Fields before all these moves happened, right? So it wasn't necessary to even add him in the mix. That happened today. So, for me, I would much rather have Justin Fields than an untested rookie. Now, that could be this craziest thing once we get to week 3 that I've ever said, and when you get to watching this kid go. But, it could also be like, man, they should have kept Justin Fields, because he at least could get the ball moving and get up the field over and over again.
With having the number 1 pick, you keep Fields, and then you decide to move down because you got so many teams who want that pick for a QB. Like, I can't help but think about what it would look like with Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Justin Fields, Swift, and then the shitload of players and picks that they would get for the number 1 pick if they made that deal.
Right. You could really bolster up some defense right there. You could bolster up some offensive line. You could get to other key pieces because you're set at the other position. So like I said, to me, I can't explain the move, but I guess I get it. They want to move on and they want to try to get this future started, and the future is now. But I really feel like you should let Fields cook another couple of years on that team, especially with those weapons, man. I would have much rather seen him than a rookie for sure. Thank God the
Chicago thinks on that one, just because it's a passionate fan base. Like, I'd be curious to know, living in Chicago, what the temperature is of that fan base.
Yeah, same. Because I feel like Fields was starting to it was like he was trying to earn their respect, and he was getting it. So for me, that's a really hard thing to do in Chicago in the first place, especially when you're coming at it like he was under a microscope for the entirety of the season.
Yep.
Dude, I'm telling you, I feel like Fields was the move right there, but we'll see. Thank God is getting ready to say the Chiefs got all the help they finally needed with Hollywood Brown. Not really. I feel like this guy drops the ball. I feel like this might be a signing to actually hinder Patrick Mahomes because they're tired of him winning Super Bowls. What do you think right here, Joe?
I can go either way with this one because I can take the drop passes and just the inconsistency in general and say this isn't a blimp on the radar and he could end up being in a Kadarius Toney role by week 10 with them. However, the other side of that, he has played with Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray and whoever has backed up Kyler Murray because Arizona started a shit ton of quarterbacks the last couple of years. To play with Patrick Mahomes now, and regardless of his hands, he's immediately after Travis Kelce. I mean, I guess Rice, I guess he slots in realistically as their number 2 wideout on the other side of Rice. But I do believe he's going to help Rice kind of loosen up coverage-wise there. And there's something about Hollywood Brown. When he is playing well, he can take in a lot of targets and he can make a lot of plays. I'm intrigued here. If Valdez-Scantling had a couple big plays, Rice obviously came on, and then there was a big pile of shit. So there for Mahomes, and it's Mahomes. I could see, and I'm not talking. He ain't in my fantasy week 1 starting lineup. But he could be in my DFS week 1 lineup. I could see something here because of Mahomes.
Yeah, no, I really just don't think that that's like going to be anything significant towards the end of the season. But I do think you're right. When he's on, the kid's on, man, he can play football. Just I'd see him drop it too much, and that's a team that seems.
What was the money on him?
Drops. Who's that? Hollywood Brown?
Yeah.
It was something short. I think it was only a 1-year deal as well. Let me look that up here real quick while we're going on that. We'll go ahead and go to the next one, and we'll let you talk about Fields and Wilson both heading to Pittsburgh. But the real deal there is Pickett's heading to Philly.
Pickett's heading to Philly.
What do you think about that? Fields and Russell Wilson are now Pittsburgh Steelers. What are they going to do here? What's going on?
It's very unlike the Steelers to make the Wilson move. Never mind the Fields move too. I can tell you what I want. I want Justin Fields to be the week 1 quarterback and never look back. But I don't think that's going to happen. There was a report that came out the other day that said when the Giants interviewed with Russ Wilson, they didn't guarantee him the starting role. They said it would have been a competition. He, clearly what we know about Russ Wilson and his ego is not going to like that. So it does feel like they've promised Russ Wilson at least week 1. But we've already talked about it here for 32 minutes. I like Justin Fields way more than Russell Wilson at this point. That being said, I do think they are both better than rolling in with Kenny Pickett. But at the same time, then too, that's a huge loss from a target perspective alone with losing Johnson. And how are they going to fill that gap at wideout?
Yeah, no doubt about it. No, like I said, that's going to be one thing right there is like I said, Fields right there alone. And Deontay Johnson, that is a huge loss right there. You've got Pickens, but then it kind of gets a steep drop off right there. Now, I like Najee Harris. I like Jaylen Warren in the backfield. But again, maybe to me, I just feel like if I'm running this offense, I'm probably running it through Fields because Russell Wilson's just been trash, man. He has not looked good. I think that the Broncos, now it is kind of funny though, like the contract is, I believe that Pittsburgh's on the hook for like $1 million of the $48 million contract or something. The Denver's still going to pay $47 million of that. So it's like really no risk to have Russell Wilson. So it makes me wonder if just that alone right there makes them roll out Fields because he's probably going to be likely a bigger investment. But yeah, Marquise Brown is just expected to sign a 1-year deal. I don't believe there's been anything.
Oh, gotcha. The thing with Russell Wilson too is he had Judy and Sutton in Denver. So it's not like he didn't have anybody to throw to there. I don't know. His season was so weird last year. He's a head scratcher at this point.
Yeah, he turned out some real good weeks there, especially towards the end of the season, man. You were liking having him in that quarterback slot. But if you were watching him play football, it just doesn't seem like he has that Russ Wilson spark that, to me made him good. He doesn't seem like he's very mobile. Right. Seems very statuesque standing in the backfield where I don't know. Like I said, to me, it's just a different Russell Wilson that we're seeing out there. And to me, I think Justin Fields can take that guy down fairly quickly too. I think we can see that happen within the first few weeks right there. Man, so that's a boatload of news there, Joe. I think we just made it through most of it, at least the significant stuff. I mean, again, they're all significant. There's a lot of crazy moves with tight ends and stuff like that that just seem like they're nothing, but man, they bolster up some of that blocking and that running game gets a lot better and things like that. We're just talking about the key offensive pieces right now. So, Joe, do you got anything anymore?
Yeah, let me ask you. Let me ask you two questions, and then what do you think happens with T. Higgins, and what do you make of Sam Howell?
T. Higgins, I feel like, man, I don't know that he doesn't just. I feel like he probably ends up staying in Cincinnati. I don't know if there's going to be a whole lot of takers and probably what he's going to want to be asking. I feel like T. Higgins is going to be a Bengal for one more year. What are you thinking on him?
It's a lot of money wherever it ends up. And at this point, too, like I kind of feel like, Tennessee spent their money on Ridley. We talked about Deontay Johnson. So I don't know what's left for him either. So that is an interesting one. I don't know how you come back from requesting a trade, but being okay to be there. But at the same time, the Bengals need him. That's a huge hole if he leaves.
I mean, but that happens almost every day in the NFL anymore, doesn't it? Like,
yeah, you can't.
Like, yeah, like I want to trade, and then they're like, oh, we made up.
We made up. Sam Howell, I don't know. I don't get the command. I mean, just from the running back situation alone now with the Commanders having Eckler and Robinson, that's interesting. I don't really get the quarterback there. What I don't understand is why do you play Sam Howell all year the way they did to then trade him here? That part was the head scratcher for me.
Right. And then, I mean, is Sam Howell going to go be a starter, or is that going to be Geno Smith again next year for the Seahawks? That's a weird one for me too. Yeah, that was a strange one because Sam Howell did look, I mean, yes, he wasn't doing great, but he was doing great for fantasy. For damn sure. I mean, you were loving him for that, but from an NFL perspective, that wasn't paying off very well. But at the same time, it did look like there was some upticks towards the end of the season there with them as well. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of guys that I feel like they don't let them cook long enough. But I guess I also understand it too. I mean, we're talking about a game where they have to win every single year. They have to win the Super Bowl every single year. And if they're not, they're failing expectations. Yep. And so, I mean, every team's got to get out there and do what they got to do. But a lot of times from our seats, it looks pretty crazy and it looks pretty wild, especially, like I said, man, this offseason, it's been nuts, man. There's that Justin Fields one. That was the one where I'm like, all right, dude, it's time. We got to get on there. We got to get this stuff figured out. What are we going to be doing next season? So
I'll tell you what, by like Wednesday, I was dying to get on the air. I really was because with every move you saw, you're like, oh yeah. It was, this feels good.
Yeah, I think I'd be just looking at like some dynasty chat or something like that because my phone was going off so much that day with sleeper alerts. And I was looking, I was like, holy crap, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Holy crap, that's a big deal. Holy crap, that's a big deal. I'm like,
my wife must have said 20 times this week, what's wrong? Just a sports thing.
Right. Right. Yeah, there's some in there like Aaron Donald retiring. That was a big deal. That's they talk about the end of an era right there and things like that. Yeah, it's going to be crazy, man. It's going to be a fun off season. It's going to be a fun season. I'm already excited. I think we're like 52 weeks away or something like that. Not really. I don't do math like that. So don't get on there and say, oh man, you're actually off because 52 weeks is a year. I know that. Okay. But it feels like 52 weeks anyways. Joe, you got anything to add before we go ahead and take off? Let these good folks go ahead and go to bed tonight.
This scratched the itch that I had.
Amen to that. Yeah, no, thanks again, everybody, for having us again in your homes and in your cars and on your stereos and wherever. In boom boxes. I wonder if people still carry around boom boxes anymore. That'd be dope to actually see somebody jamming to you on a boom box, man. So if you're ever doing that, make sure you take pictures, send it to us. But until then, guys, we'll see. We'll probably pop in here in a couple of weeks, start talking a little bit about dynasty buy sells, things like that. We like to go after the draft for that kind of stuff, so we know exactly what we're talking about because a lot of things. They're a lot easier to go for when we get that dust settled. So good luck, everybody. Enjoy watching this free agent frenzy. Hopefully it continues, man. It's like Christmas every damn 5 minutes. So let's hope that keeps going and everything keeps going. Joe, Jeff, we missed you tonight, man. We hope to see you here soon. And thank you, everybody. And you guys have yourself a good night. We will see you.